So, students, let us look at another approach of species distribution, the pattern of species distribution. One we have already considered in the previous session, that is about the latitudinal gradient of species distribution. Right? So according to latitudinal gradient, how in different regions, like in the tropics and in the temperate and in the polar regions, how the species distribution will be there and why it happens. Right? See, in the previous slide we have already seen why so much diversity in the tropics. This is the reason for what latitudinal gradient of distribution. This can be an important 3 marks question. Remember this, make a note of this. Okay, it's an important 3 marks question. Right? Moving forward, in this session, let us consider the species area relationship. This is actually, it was given by Alexander von Humboldt. It talks about one more different type of species distribution on the earth. Right? So what does it say? What is the species area relationship? According to the observation made by German naturalist and geographer Alexander von Humboldt, according to him, species richness is directly proportional to the given or available area. Andre, for example, there is 10 acres of land, right? Maybe there are some 100 tigers anta andkolli, right? So if the species area richness, if we talk about the distribution of species according to the species area relationship, according to this particular concept, if we increase that area 100 acres to 200 acres, then the species richness also should go on from 10 to 20. Yes? So this is what he's talking about. Species richness is directly proportional to area, true to only some extent. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, this will not be holding good in all conditions. It cannot be considered as true in all conditions. Why is that so? It is because if you go on increasing the area unlimitedly, ನೋಡಿ ಆ 200 acres ಇದೆ 20 ಆಯಿತು, right? And if you take thousands of acres and if you imagine to increase the number of the tigers only, maybe that will not be possible, because see, they also require a particular habitat. They also require a particular favorable condition, right? Which would not be suitable. That theory will not suit, right? In that condition when the area is considered too large. Yes or no? So for any taxa, right, for any group of organisms, this relation becomes a rectangular hyperbola. See, it's a very important question for 5 marks, and along with the graph, this slide is very important. So in this we can see this hyperbola, rectangular hyperbola you are seeing. Why is this happening like this? See, on the x-axis we have taken the area, and on the y-axis we have denoted species richness. According to this particular graph, what does it say? The species richness goes on increasing along with area, but only up to a certain extent, because if area increases beyond a particular limit, the species richness becomes constant. Right? ನೋಡಿ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್ ರಿಚ್ನೆಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಏರಿಯಾ ಎರಡು ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಿದೆ, ಬಟ್ at a particular period of time, when the area increases even more, but species richness constant ಆಗಿದೆ, almost constant ಆಗಿದೆ. Right? So this is what Alexander von Humboldt is talking about, and he also gives the mathematical expression, that is S is equal to CA square. Right? So let us define these terms here. See, it is a straight line on a log scale. It can be mathematically given as, ನೀವು log scale ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ, so see, if log scale ಅಲ್ಲಿ species ಮತ್ತು area ಇದು actually goes on increasing uniformly. So this is a theoretical type. That means this cannot be possible practically, but in the ecological conditions, so this is the right thing. So on the log scale, it will be a straight line. And based on that, he has given the mathematical expression log S is equal to log C plus Z log A, and S is species richness, Z is the slope of the line, A is area, C is the y-intercept. Z ಅಲ್ಲಿ, according to ecologists, Z can be, the value of the slope can be 0.1 or 0.2. 0.1 or 0.2 can be the value of the Z, regardless of the taxonomic group of the species or maybe any geographical location. So Z usually ಎಷ್ಟಿರುತ್ತೆ 0.1 to 0.2 ಇರುತ್ತೆ. Or for very large areas, the Z value increases up to 0.6 to 1.2. But in this case, like maybe a continent ಅಂತ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, ಅಥವಾ ಮೆನಿ ಕಂಟ್ರೀಸ್ ಟುಗೆದರ್ ಅಂತ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಅವ್ರ ಎಂಟೈರ್ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ಅಂತ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ that becomes really a huge geographical area. Then the Z value goes up to what? 0.6 to 1.2. And in this condition, this particular statement will not hold good. Right? So this rectangular hyperbola can be a correct graph in this condition. Example, for frugivorous birds in tropics. Frugivorous birds means small birds. They are feeding upon the small insects and all. So frugivorous birds in tropics, the Z value for these birds is Z is equal to 1.15. Yake anta helidre, these frugivorous birds, they have been distributed very widely in a very large geographical area. And that is the reason Z is equal to 1.15. See, as the slope, the number of the value of the slope goes on increasing, the slope becomes more and more steeper. Nodi idu higide anta helidre, so the species richness goes on increasing, it will become more and more steeper, right? So that is how we can understand the species area relationship as given by Alexander von Humboldt. As I told you, this is a 5 marks important question. You must be also knowing to draw the graph. You must remember the mathematical expression and the description of the terms associated with this mathematical expression, right? Moving forward, what is the importance of studying the species distribution? We have studied 2 different types of patterns of species distribution. One is latitudinal gradient and the other is what? The species area relationship, right? So what is the importance of doing it? Ecologists have believed that the number of species is related with the functioning of the ecosystem, and more the number of the species, the more stability of the ecosystem. Andre illi now actually what we are referring to here is that, see, when we study the pattern of distribution of the species, by studying the different patterns, maybe the latitudinal pattern or maybe the species area relationship, one conclusion what we can conclude at, the species concentration, wherever it is more, obviously more stable is the ecosystem in that particular ecosystem. ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್ ಕಂಪೋಸಿಷನ್ ಅತಿ ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿರುತ್ತೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟೆಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಆಫ್ ದ ಎಕೋಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕೆ? ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅ ಸ್ಟೇಬಲ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ? ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅ ಬಯಾಲಜಿಕಲಿ ಸ್ಟೇಬಲ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ? ಸ್ಟೆಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಅ ಸ್ಟೇಬಲ್ ಬಯಾಲಜಿಕಲ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ ಈಸ್ ಒನ್ ವಿತ್ no or very less variability in the productivity year by year. We have already understood productivity. What is productivity? The total amount of the biomass produced, maybe in terms of the mass or in terms of the energy in a given unit time. ಅಥವಾ ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇಯರ್ ಅಂತ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. or in a given area. ಒಂದು ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಜಾಗ್ರಫಿಕಲ್ ಲೊಕೇಶನ್ ಇಂದ, ಒಂದು ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟಾಟ್ ನಿಂದ ಒಂದು ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಈಲ್ಡ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಬಯೋಮಾಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಅಥವಾ ಹೌ ಮಚ್ ಜೂಲ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಈಸ್ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಔಟ್. So that should remain almost constant for an ecosystem ಅಥವಾ for a biological community. If it is varying too much, ಒಂದು ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಮತ್ತೊಂದು ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಅದು ತುಂಬಾ ವೇರಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ, then we cannot consider that particular ecosystem or that particular community as a stable one. So in order to remain as a stable community, there should be very less or no variability in the productivity year by year. So the biological community can be considered as a stable community only if it is resistant and resilient to disturbances. Resistant anta helidre, it must be able to resist the disturbances. Resist anta niಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ, right? So it must be able to withstand. Resilient anta helidre, it must be able to live with, it must be able to cope up with the disturbances. It has to, the biological community in that particular ecosystem must be able to survive even along with the disturbances. That is what is resistant and resilient to disturbances. Hagadre, what are the disturbances that are thrown at a biological community in any ecosystem? See, there are disturbances maybe within the biological community, like intraspecific competitions irbodu, athwa intraspecific interactions irbodu. There are different types of interactions we have learnt, right? The interactions may be antagonistic, may be mutualistic, or may be beneficial. right? So we have come across different types of interactions here. So ee interaction galindagi, in case if the disturbance happens within the community, or maybe a disturbance may occur from outside the community also, so whatever type of disturbances it can be, it must be able to resist and resile, or it must be resilient to those disturbances. Then only it will be considered as a stable community. Then it must be also resistant to invasive alien species. IAS means, it is not the Indian Administrative Service here. IAS here means what? Invasive alien species. Invasive alien species anta helidre enu? See, there are certain species which are not native to a particular habitat. ಈಗ habitat A ಮತ್ತು habitat B ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. A particular species of the animal or plant, it migrates somehow from area A to area B. So area A ge adu native, area B is not the native of that particular species, correct? No. So in the area B, this species, in order to establish there, now what it does, it will start disturbing the native species of the habitat B. ಇದು ಮೈಗ್ರೇಟ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದು ಎ ಇಂದ ಬಿ ಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿರುವಂತಹ ನೇಟಿವ್ ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್ಗೆ ಇಟ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಡಿಸ್ಟರ್ಬಿಂಗ್ ದೋಸ್ ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್, ಇಟ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಟ್ರಬಲಿಂಗ್ ದೋಸ್ ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್. It also may cause the extinction of certain species in the habitat B, right? So these are the disturbances caused by the invasiveness of the alien species. It invades on the other species of that particular habitat. So ಆ ಇನ್ವೇಷನ್ ಗೆ ಕೂಡ ಒಂದು ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ತೋರಿಸುವಂತಹ ಬಯೋಲಾಜಿಕಲ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ ಇದ್ರೆ, ದಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಈವನ್ ಇಫ್ ದ ಏಲಿಯನ್ ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ದೇರ್, ದ ನೇಟಿವ್ ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್ ಮಸ್ಟ್ ಬಿ ಲಿವಿಂಗ್ ದೇರ್, ದೇ ಶುಡ್ ನಾಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟಿಂಕ್ಟ್. In such cases, that will be considered as a stable biological community. So these are three important points about the stable biological community you need to remember. So this can be a very important 3 marks question. According to an experiment conducted by a scientist called David Tillman, he did an outdoor experiment in order to talk about the stable biological community. Idr bagge he gives a more convincing data or more convincing explanation. See, according to the results of David Tillman's experiment using the outdoor plots, ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, in one he considers 2 agricultural fields, 2 agricultural plotಗಳನ್ನು ತಗೊಳ್ತಾರೆ. In one field he grows only 1 species of the grass. In the other field he will grow around 20 different species of the grass. So, and ಅವ್ರೇನು ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಎಕಾಲಜಿಸ್ಟ್, ದೇ ಥಾಟ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಒನ್ ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಗ್ರೋನ್, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವಂತಹ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ಸು ಎಲ್ಲವನ್ನು ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಒಂದೇ ಸ್ಪೀಸೀಸ್ ಸಿಗ್ತಾ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಗ್ರೋ ವೆರಿ ಲಕ್ಸುರಿಯಸ್ಲಿ without any disturbance. But for their wonder, the species which were grown along with other 19 species, only 20 different species in idvu, they actually grew more well when compared to the one species which was grown separately. When both of these fields were given proper nutrients, same nutrients and same amount of water and same environmental conditions, the growth was seen more in the crowded area. 20 different species allittu, alli ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಬೆಳವಣಿಗೆ ಆಗಿತ್ತು, and where was one species was grown, it was less, right? So plots with more species had less year to year variation of biomass. Why is this happening is because the interaction, the interspecific or intraspecific interactions taking place, and one is dependent on the other, interdependency is more, and that is why there is no great variation in the biomass. But biomass variation ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಒಂದೇ ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, so one species it can vary because there is no interdependency, right? So it can vary from year to year with respect to the biomass. That is why, so when we talk about the stability, plots with more species showed much stability. Increased diversity contributes to higher productivity. So by this experiment, he concluded that increased diversity contributes to higher productivity. Yes, so let us look at David Tillman himself. I don't know how much you can hear from this video. Let us, I have a video. Let me try to play that video here for you.
We did this long-term experiment at Cedar Creek where we've been growing prairie grasses by themselves and various combinations. It's a biodiversity experiment. We're trying to find out do changes in the number of species within an ecosystem, which are changes in the biological diversity, do those affect how the ecosystem functions? One of our species that we grew by itself as well as a mixture was switchgrass. And switchgrass became famous as the energy grass of the future. But I kept looking at my experimental plots, and I had switchgrass growing plots, and next to it I have a plot planted with 16 species. And I looked at them, the 16 species plots were always much, much more productive than switchgrass by itself. With any of the things growing by themselves, we had 238% more energy produced on average in plots with 16 species, plots with biodiversity compared to switchgrass growing by itself. A huge difference, a huge premium in yield of the energy you get off an acre of land. We can take advantage of the benefits of biological diversity on productivity, on stability, on storing more carbon in the soil, and making the biofuel actually have a better greenhouse gas signature than it wasn't growing in high diversity plots. Another thing we're trying to find out is how might we put, let's say, high diversity biofuel crops on a farmer's landscape. Are there some places where they actually do the farmer more good and society more good? We are finding out whether or not high diversity regions might be able to capture the nutrients that would say flow off the cornfield topsoil or flow off the soybean field topsoil, might be able to capture those, causing the biofuel crop to actually give you higher yields because of those nutrients. But having them actually capture them in a way which keeps them out of the groundwater, keeps them out of the lakes, rivers, and streams. If that's so, it might be that we'll go to a model of agriculture where you have some land that's a bit higher land that will be farmed with soybeans and corn with very large buffer strips around it of bioenergy crops, high diversity mixtures of species, say, which are then a sink that can absorb the nutrients. And we're even looking at whether they can absorb some of the pesticides or other chemicals that come off of agricultural landscapes. These are sort of off-the-wall ideas that they wouldn't make out of, but we're trying to find out if there can be some synergy, some ways that we can sort of make a landscape that can provide us a whole variety of benefits.
So, well, students, this is the experiment conducted by David Tillman, and he himself has explained to you. I hope you heard about this. So, it only talks about the stable biological community. So, two different plots were considered. In one, only one species was grown. In the other, many species were grown. And it only talks about what? The one with larger species distribution or larger species composition is a stable community. Yes, so we will talk about the other aspects or Rivet-Popper hypothesis. So in the next class.